I'm starting something called Derm Office Hours, which is basically me taking the hair and skin and product questions that you ask the most on here. And yes, I read all of the comments and answering them the way I would if you were a patient sitting in my office. So listen up, your question might be answered in this video. And of course, feel free to ask more questions in the comments so that I can hopefully answer them in the future. If you're new, I'm Dr. Sam Ellis. I'm a board-certified dermatologist, and this channel is all about giving you super practical information when it comes to understanding your skin and hair and how to take great care of it. And if you want more videos like this, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and you're subscribed to the channel. And today's Derm Office Hours are in partnership with Derm Tour, where you know I love to shop. They have so many great products that I use and recommend all in one place. And right now they are having their beauty refresh sale. So anything that I mentioned today that you can shop in the sale, I will certainly link below, but I will also include my discount code in case you are watching this after the sale has ended so you can still save. Okay, let's get into it. Office hours are officially in session. Question number 1 is from Leonora7776. Please do a skincare video for pregnant women. Which ingredients are we allowed to use or not? First of all, congratulations if you are pregnant. And second, I totally understand where the confusion comes from. And I think this is mostly because there is so much conflicting information out there when it comes to what is safe while you're pregnant. Sometimes it's easier to talk with patients about what is off limits because there's not that many things that are a hard no for us dermatologists. Number 1, we don't recommend that you use topical retinoids during pregnancy or while trying to conceive because oral retinoids have been associated with birth defects. So out of an abundance of caution, we also have you stay away from topical retinoids. So things like prescription tiny no one or tazarotene, adapalene, retinol, even though the chance that these are problematic is incredibly low, we just don't mess around when there's any uncertainty. And the other ingredient that I have my patients stay away from is hydroquinone, which in the US is available via prescription only. But this is a topical that helps with hyperpigmentation. And I know a lot of women who are trying to conceive or who are pregnant may struggle with hyperpigmentation. So they want to be using something effective. And I'll talk about some safe options in a second, but hydroquinone is a no. And those are really the only 2 skincare things that I am adamant about my patients stopping. Salicylic acid, glycolic acid, other exfoliating acids. For me, those are still on the table. You get very little systemic absorption of those things. And it used to be a concern around salicylic acid that you shouldn't use high concentrations of it topically because there could be some systemic absorption. But the reality is we have people take aspirin when they are pregnant, which is essentially oral salicylic acid. So a little bit of topical salicylic acid is fine by me. The other thing there's a lot of talk about is using chemical sunscreens and whether or not those are safe in pregnancy. And what I tell my patients is we have had chemical sunscreens around for decades and they have never ever been linked to birth defects. So I used chemical sunscreen during my pregnancy. A lot of my patients will, but you always have to do what you feel comfortable with. So even if we are not redoing an entire routine, I do find that my patients are missing sort of like an anti-aging step in their routine. And I always try to reassure them like, hey, you are growing a baby. Don't worry about anti-aging. We can deal with that later. But many of them still want something to help with fine lines, wrinkles, plumping the skin, brightening the skin. And I definitely have a pregnancy safe option. And I've recommended this product many times on this channel because I love it, even if you're not trying to conceive or pregnant. And that is the Glyone Brightening Serum. This product is such a beautiful blend of glycolic acid and azelaic acid in this lovely, nourishing, lightweight serum. You have the glycolic acid in there working to expedite skin cell turnover. So that's gonna help with dullness and make your skin more bright and even. Glycolic acid can also help with texture and collagen production. So to me, that sort of fills that anti-aging void a little bit that we miss when we take retinoids out of our routine. And then it also has azelaic acid, which is not only a great antioxidant, but also helps with brightening and evening the skin. It fights hyperpigmentation, it fights breakouts and acne. There are just so many good things that both of those ingredients do. And to have them in one product is kind of perfect for my patients who have melasma or who are worried about their melasma flaring. This is also a product I will recommend to them. Now, it is not as effective as hydroquinone, but again, that's off limits in pregnancy. So we do the best with what we have because this is going to give you some good exfoliation with the glycolic acid in there. I would start out by using this 2 nights a week and then work up to 3, 4, 5. I have plenty of patients who can tolerate this 7 nights a week. And if you are able to do that, by all means. And as a reminder, anytime you're using a product with an alpha hydroxy acid, so that has something like glycolic acid or mandelic acid or lactic acid, you want to be sun protecting during the day. All alpha hydroxy acids make you more sensitive to the sun. So we don't want to undo all that progress we're making with our nighttime skincare routine by not protecting our skin from the sun during the day. Also, if you do want more pregnancy safe recs, I have an entire YouTube video that's all about pregnancy safe skincare that gets even more into the details. Next question. This one is from Arabesque7790, who wrote, used highest OTC retinol and retinels for 2 years with no issues. Derm started me on 0.05% tininoin, and for 7 months, no problems. Then a month ago, started peeling and flaking around the nose and upper lip. Now my lips have started to peel and they're red and raw. I've reduced my tree and have 1 to 2 nights off a week, but no change. Why now? Help. And yes, I sandwich moisturize. So this sounds like someone who essentially used to be able to use tininoin every single night, but now is not able to tolerate it the same way and has become more sensitive to it. And they're making the right initial interventions. They're sandwiching their tiny no-in between 2 layers of moisturizer. They're taking a couple of nights off per week, but it's still not getting better. So what would I tell my patient to do in this case? The first thing I would ask my patient is, has anything else changed in your skincare routine? Have you added a new cleanser? Are you using a new exfoliant? Did you start on a new medication? All of these things can affect your ability to tolerate tininoin or any potentially irritating skin air ingredient. And oftentimes I will find that someone is no longer tolerating their trinoin because they added an exfoliation step a couple nights a week, or they're on a new medication that dries out their skin. And so these are really important questions to answer before we even think about changing their routine at all. The other thing I think about is, has this person developed an allergy to their tininoin cream? Now, it's very rare to have an allergy to tininoin itself, but sometimes you can become sensitive to the excipients. So essentially, the non-active ingredients in a formula, like the preservatives or other things that help make the formula do what it does. If we are concerned that an allergy has developed, I usually will have the patient do a patch test on their inner arm. So I will have them apply tininoin once a day for a week to the inner arm. And I'm not looking for irritation. Irritation is not usually a sign of an allergy. I'm looking for redness, bumps, and itchiness. Itch is a hallmark of an allergy rather than an irritation reaction. Once those things had been ruled out, the next thing I would ask someone to do is to take a tininoin holiday. Essentially take all potential irritating things out of their routine. So not just a tininoin holiday, actually. We're taking out exfoliants, we're taking out vitamin C, and what we're trying to accomplish with this intervention is to allow their skin barrier to completely heal and reset. Sometimes once the skin barrier is sort of revved up or broken down, even if you are taking breaks between your tininoin or you're wearing your moisturizer, anytime you get a little bit of tea tree on that broken skin barrier, it's going to flare it more readily. So we just need to completely start with a clean slate. Once someone has done that, they're really just using like a cleanser and a moisturizer and sun protection for a few weeks, and their skin has not been flaky or peely or irritated at all, then we can start adding their retinoid back in. And I will typically have them restart that entire retinization process. The person who asked this question said, hey, I started with retinol and then moved up to retinol, and I would have them do that again. If you're not new to the channel, you have definitely heard me talk about Medicate Crystal Retinol. Retinol is one conversion step away from tininoin. So when you put it on, your skin has to convert it into essentially retinoic acid or tininoin in your skin for it to be effective. But that also makes it more gentle. And the thing I love about Medicate Crystal Retinol is that they have multiple strengths. You can start with something very low potency, using it a few nights a week, working your way up to daily. And then I tell my patients, once you get through a whole tube of that nightly without irritation, you move up to the next strength. You move up to the next strength. And some of you might be hearing that and being like, I'm impatient. I don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. But when it comes to using retinoids, which we use for fine lines and wrinkles, supporting our skin, keeping our skin plump and rejuvenated, and even over time, it is a marathon, not a sprint. So if you have to spend 6 to 9 months getting your skin reacclimated to your retinoid, to me, that is absolutely worth it. So if you've become sensitive to your Tylenol, take a hard look at your skincare routine. Make sure there's nothing else that could potentially be exacerbating that irritation. Give yourself a Tylenol break to allow your skin barrier to fully heal and become more predictable, and then start slow and work your way up again. Death Doula Band asks, so Dr. Sam, where in a routine and morning or night should the peptide step come in? Post-retin now? Great question. I feel like a lot of people are very enthusiastic about incorporating peptides into their skincare routine, but they're a little confused about how or where to put them. And the good thing about peptides is they tend to play nice with most other skin and care ingredients, so you have a lot of flexibility about where you can use them, and a lot of where you put them is going to have to do with the texture of the peptide itself, and specifically what peptides are within that formula. Since we were just talking about Medicate, let's use their advanced liquid peptides as an example, also because I think it is one of the best peptide formulas on the market when it comes to anti-aging. Among the many amazing peptides that this formula contains, and it's why I recommend it so often, it does have copper peptides, which you will see in a lot of peptide blends because copper peptides have some of the most robust data behind them when it comes to anti-aging benefits. However, out of all of the peptides that we use in anti-aging skincare, copper peptides have the potential to be the most finicky. Some people don't like using them with their retinoid in a nighttime skincare routine because independently, copper peptides and retinoids can both cause a little bit of irritation to the skin. So if someone has a lot of sensitivity, they may find that using their peptide with their retinoid is too much. But if your skin can handle it, there's no reason why you can't put those together in a routine. But I feel like a lot of people don't put their copper peptide with their retinoid because they're worried they inactivate one another, which is not true. Where the concern about inactivation comes in is when you pair copper peptides with vitamin C, and not all vitamin Cs, specifically L-ascorbic acid and 30th-corbic acid. Theoretically, there is a concern that copper peptides can oxidize or inactivate those forms of vitamin C. So we have you proceed with caution when stacking those in a morning skincare routine. For example, a lot of people will want to put on a vitamin C serum and then go in with a peptide serum, which is generally a great 1-2 punch. But if you use an ascorbic acid-based vitamin C serum, you may want to reconsider putting your peptide serum in your nighttime routine, just so that you're not running the risk of those interfering with one another. This is something that even I used to do. I would do my vitamin C and then my peptide serum. And now that I've talked to more cosmetic chemists over the years, I feel like I feel more comfortable having my peptide serum in my nighttime routine. And if you're concerned about sensitivity, layering your peptide with your retinoid in the evening first, try it. You might do just fine. And if you cannot tolerate that, then it's worth it to prioritize your retinoid over your peptide in your routine. So morning or night really depends on what else is in your skincare routine. And then in terms of which step it comes in at, I usually like to layer my skincare thinnest to thickest. That's just what feels the most cosmetically elegant. And you're not going to make any of your ingredients less active by layering them in the wrong way. They all kind of mush together on the skin. Eventually, these are molecules kind of interdigitating with one another. It's not like sheets of cake that are really stacking on top of each other. So in the morning, I would put a peptide serum after any light toners or essences that you might be using, and before any moisturizer or sunscreen. In the evening, you could layer it before your retinoid, or you can put it on after. Either is okay. Whatever feels better on your skin is going to be fine. If you're finding this video helpful so far, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and also make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss future Derm office hours. This next question comes from Runker Gerlex. Did I say that right? I have a hard time using SPF on my face. Regular and even sensitive skin SPF products give me a burning sensation on my skin. The only ones that aren't painful are baby formulas in stick form, which if used daily, clogs my pores. At this point, I just don't use SPF on my face unless I'll be outside all day and opt for a hat and sunglasses to hide my face on regular days? Do you have any insight why only my face seems to be sensitive to SPF and alternative products? So this person seems to be struggling with tolerating sunscreen on their facial skin. And this is actually something I run into quite a bit as a dermatologist. Sometimes people have underlying sensitivities. They might have eczema or rosacea that makes their skin particularly sensitive to one product or category of ingredients. And unfortunately, sunscreens tend to be a major culprit of causing skin irritation. One thing I do find quite commonly as a dermatologist when people cannot tolerate sunscreens on their face but can do it on the rest of their body, it's because they're doing something else in their skincare routine that is making their facial skin more sensitive. Like whether that's using retinoids, using vitamin C, over exfoliating. So first I encourage someone to sort of reset their skin the same way I talked about doing if you get a little retinoid or tynanoin irritation, and then trying revisiting sunscreens, because sometimes when your skin is healthy, you can tolerate sunscreens that you used to not be able to. The difficulty lies in figuring out what about the formula is causing a problem, and that's going to vary from individual to individual. It could be a sensitivity to one specific ingredient or to a blend of ingredients and how that product is put together overall. And when it comes to finding your perfect sunscreen, which I honestly believe there is a perfect sunscreen out there for everyone, it is a lot of trial and error. Now, before I get into my favorite sunscreen for sensitive skin, because I do think like I have a personal favorite, I want to applaud this commenter for doing everything within their capacity to protect their skin from the sun. So even though they can't tolerate most sunscreens, they're using it when really necessary. They're wearing wide brim hats, they're protecting their skin in other ways. And I always try to remind patients, like, sunscreen is just one way you protect your skin, but we have so many other things that we can kind of tap into. I don't love picking favorites because everyone's skin is different. But if I was like pinned down at a cocktail party, someone's like, you're a dermatologist, what's your favorite sunscreen for sensitive skin? I would probably have to go with the Tyso Ultra Zinc for body and face. Tayo in general is actually a great sunscreen brand. I don't feel like it gets enough love, but it makes really good mineral-based sunscreens. And I like this one in particular because it's very minimal in the ingredients. So it doesn't have a lot of the ingredients and preservatives that normally break people out, that make people feel more sensitive. So if I have someone who is post-procedure, has peroral dermatitis, has sensitive, stingy skin, I usually have them start with this. And for a zinc sunscreen, it does not give a horrible white cast. It's really nice and creamy. It's very comfortable, and it's really reasonably priced if you look at the cost per ounce. Like, it gives some drugstore sunscreens a real run for their money. This also comes in a tinted and an untinted version. I usually recommend the untinted, but for people who have more fair skin, who find most tinted sunscreens to be too orange, this is a really good one. It does not lean orange. It is very cool toned. Next question looks like it's actually about sunscreen as well. This is from Winona Fellner 6682. Since trying to wear SPF lotion every day, I am breaking out with acne. I have several whiteheads and a few cystic and even a sty. I have had dry skin all my life. How could I possibly over moisturize? Help me wear sunscreen. I am not surprised people are having issues with sunscreen. That last commenter had issues with causing irritation. This one's having issues with it causing acne. These are probably the two most common complaints I get about sunscreens. And again, a little bit comes down to trial and error, because there is not one specific ingredient or ingredient blend that you can look for in a sunscreen and go, yes, that's going to clog my pores, or no, that's not going to clog my pores. But I certainly have favorites and ones that I would prioritize testing out. Also, it's really important, if you are wearing sunscreen every day, that you are removing it properly at the end of the day. The whole way a sunscreen works is by forming a film on your skin, and that film helps protect against UV radiation. But that film can also be a little hard to get off and can clog your pores if left on over time or is not properly removed. So I am a huge fan of the double cleanse, where we are doing like an oil-based cleanser or a cleansing balm or even a micellar water on a cotton pad to sort of take off our sunscreen and our makeup from the day, and then going in with a second cleanse, like a gentle cleanser, to remove the rest. I have so many people who just up their cleansing game and then their acne gets better too. But when I'm counseling my acne-prone patients and perhaps I'm even prescribing some things to treat their acne, I always want them to have sunscreen as part of their morning skincare routine that's going to help reduce acne scars. It's going to help reduce inflammation that drives acne. So sunscreen is still a really important part of an acne care routine. And I have some recs that I give them. I would say probably the most well-known of the sunscreens I recommend for acne is Ulta MD UV Clear. This formula has been around for over a decade. It was one of the very first sunscreens I ever truly fell in love with. First as a consumer and then as a dermatologist once I became a dermatologist. But this formula is so beautiful. It's very lightweight on the skin. It's meant to not clog your pores. Again, that's going to be very personal, but I find that a lot of people who are acne prone do really well with it. This was one of the first sunscreens to really lean into the ingredient neoinamide. And if you exist in the skincare space, like niacinamide kind of feels like it's everywhere, but Ulta MD was very much a pioneer with incorporating this into a formula. Niacinamide helps with barrier function. It helps with oil control. It acts as an antioxidant. So having that within a sunscreen can be very helpful if you are acne prone or you feel like your sunscreen tends to make you oily. Another sunscreen that I absolutely love for my acne prone patients is actually marketed as a makeup primer. It's by the brand CL, and I love CL for their foundations and their blushes, but they also make an amazing makeup primer with SPF 30. It's a mineral-based sunscreen, and what I love about it is that it feels very lightweight on the skin for being zinc-based, and this brand really prides itself on being an acne-safe makeup brand and being very skin-friendly, and I've had many patients over the past couple of years who have really fallen in love with this formula, and because this is a makeup primer, this also works really well under makeup, so it's very dual purpose. And I find that a lot of my patients who are prone to acne want to be wearing a little concealer or foundation while their skin is sort of healing, and this really lends itself well to that. And then one other sunscreen that I love that is unlikely to clog your pores is the Porto Soft Touch Sunscreen. This is a Korean sunscreen. I recommend it all the time. It has this beautiful, airy, lightweight texture. It has a very skin-like finish. It's very affordable. I will put a link in the description box because sometimes it can be a little bit hard to find. But it's also a wonderful sunscreen if you are acne prone. I also have many videos on this channel that talk about my favorite SU. It's also a little more of a budget option if you can't splurge on an eye cream. Eye cream, like I said before, do not underestimate the power of consistent sun protection around the eyes in terms of making them look better over time. And with that final question, today's office hours have come to a close. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new, maybe gave you some inspiration of what type of question you want to ask. And make sure you are subscribed so if I do answer your question, you don't miss it. As always, thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you in my next video.